Tonight, talking about the safety of your kids online. A landmark jury verdict in California is putting tech giants on notice. Meta and Google were found negligent for creating social media platforms jurors say are harmfully addictive to young people. A ruling that could reshape how these apps operate and how they're regulated nationwide. Right now, the North Carolina legislature is fighting a similar battle on a different front.
Yeah, there is a bill working its way through the Senate that would keep people under the age of 13 from having access to social media apps altogether. WBTV's Daryl Green is on your side tonight.
Well, Daryl, how would this actually work?
Well, Kim, this is legislation with very specific intent. House Bill 301 would keep kids under the age of 13 from being able to download social media apps and severely restrict access to those apps for kids ages 14 to 15. Now, this would be made possible by an age verification system. But there are sticking points being debated right now, such as who would be on the hook for allowing illegal app downloads. The App Store, the app is accessed, or the social media app itself. Well, during today's Senate Education Policy Committee hearing, several members spoke of the documented cases of childhood anxiety and depression, all linked to social media. But today, they were told by one expert that there's an even darker side to being allowed unsupervised access to social media apps.
There's this brand new twist to the old adage, don't talk to strangers. When children are able to access social media, the strangers come looking for them. AI tools and algorithmic functions that many of you have already talked about allow predators easy access to our most vulnerable. Tragically, too many children have been robbed of their innocence, endangered by bad actors, and even kidnapped and trafficked because they were exposed to the harms of social media too early.
Now, keep in mind, social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook already require age verification and prohibit account holders under the age of 13. But lawmakers, like the bill's co-author, Representative Jess Zinger, want those companies and others like them to be held accountable when kids do find ways around the age verification systems in place.
In terms of how it's enforced, it authorizes the Justice Department to bring an action for unfair and deceptive trade practices against social media platforms that violate these provisions and to collect a civil penalty of up to $50,000 per violation. And authorizes a civil action on behalf of a minor account holder for an award of up to $10,000 in damages. And so it's got some teeth in it.
Then there's the issue of free speech and the First Amendment. Several other states have already passed laws restricting access to social media apps by young people. Some, like Texas and Utah, have had success. But similar laws in Florida are facing lawsuits right now. And in other states like Arkansas, their laws have been rolled back altogether.
Well, it has survived challenges, but I guess my counter would be then are age restrictions on guns a violation of the Second Amendment? I mean, you know, so it has survived challenges. I expect it will. And again, like I said, it's wildly popular.
This debate is happening as new research shows just how strongly parents feel about online protections. A 2026 Common Sense Media survey found 64% of adults support age verification for social media. 95% say children need protection from certain online content. At the same time, there are real concerns about how those systems would work. 80% worry kids will find ways around the age checks, and 86% are concerned that companies could share children's data without consent. So while support for guardrails is very strong, the debate now centers on how to enforce them without creating new privacy risks. Now, an attorney representing Meta was in the committee chambers today, and she said that the company supports any legislation that would create an App Store age verification threshold, but acknowledged that the threat of lawsuits, saying that topic will be addressed by the Senate Judiciary Committee as the bill makes its way to the Senate floor for full debate. Daryl Green, WBTV, on your side.
All right, Daryl, thanks a lot. Now, there's more to come on